Oh, hey there. Getting this out of the way right now? Yes, things look entirely different than the last couple of videos that I shot. And that's because I'm sitting approximately 2 feet to the left of where I normally sit. And that's because this video about Castlevania is pretty much going to be completely unscripted. I'd mentioned over on my community tab that I'd been planning on doing an unscripted video talking about the new Castlevania Belmont's Curse. And I kind of want to expand upon that and just talk about my thoughts about Castlevania, the series as a whole, in the same video. So yeah, it's going to be unscripted. I have some like notes written down and whatnot, just like some general thoughts, but for the most part, it's just going to be this. So yes, it is just as weird for you as it is for me, because normally I'm sitting over there. I normally don't have like a monitor and all these other distractions in front of me. So we'll see how it goes. Just getting this out of the way right now, because this is unscripted and the whole idea was to just get things set up real fast and just talk. I'm really hoping that the video quality looks good. I kind of did everything myself real fast. Normally I have help getting everything set up and getting the focus perfect and all that. So if it looks bad, sorry, I won't know until it's done. And then I will probably hate myself in editing. But regardless, if it doesn't look as good as it normally does when I'm like sitting down over there, that's why. Anyway, also because it is unscripted, yeah, I might ramble on about certain topics a little bit more than I normally would. But I'm still going to do my best to put like chapters down below or whatever. So yeah, let's just see what happens. So you're never going to believe what happened. I recorded this entire video, and while I was editing it, they dropped a second trailer for Castlevania Belmont's Curse. So it kind of threw my whole idea for this video out the window. I don't really want to do 2 videos on 2 different trailers. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to splice them together because the whole thing was unscripted anyway. So if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but it is what it is, right? So here's the plan. We're going to jump backwards to me wearing the black shirt. When it's me wearing the black shirt, that just means that it's me from the past and that I have not seen the second trailer. It's just me talking about my thoughts on that initial first trailer that we received like a while back, as well as my thoughts about the Castlevania series as a whole. So you're still going to get all of that before this trailer. You're going to hear me say things like, oh man, if we had a gameplay trailer, I might have more to say. I didn't want to drop the video, have that out there, and then have a million people go, oh, well, they dropped a gameplay trailer. Like, I know, that's the predicament that I'm in now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump back. I'm still going to have all that. And then I'm just going to do a rough and dirty cut back to me right now wearing the white shirt, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on the new trailer. So I guess if you want to just get the thoughts on the new trailer, you know, you can just jump to that spot. I'll put timestamps and all that stuff down below, but I think it would make more sense if you guys, you know, got my thoughts on the initial trailer and then see how they change or don't change or whatever based off the new one. It's dumb, but who cares, right? This whole thing was just a fun unscripted video. This took me by surprise, but I guess it gives me more to talk about. So it is what it is. Yeah, I will catch you guys in however long it takes me to get there with the next in this video. Like it's coming up in this video. So we're gonna jump back right now to the past. Enjoy that part, and I will see you guys very shortly with my thoughts on the second trailer. All right, going back to the past now. So to really express my feelings about like Castlevania Belmont's Curse, I have to talk about my feelings about this series as a whole and how it's changed and evolved over the years. Because one of my biggest worries, and this is with any series, right, is that a lot of companies nowadays just kind of want to take popular IP name and slap it on thing and hand it to you and say, it's the thing you wanted, right? Because the name sells, because we're all so foaming at the mouth for these IPs that have been just sitting dead or we love so much that, you know, they could just hand it to us on just, you know, with nothing else and say, this is the game, it's got the title that you wanted, so it must be what you want, right? And my worry is that that's kind of a little bit of where we're heading with Belmont's Curse. I'll get into my more specifics of the trailer in just a second, a minute, I guess. But what I mean by that is like, yes, games evolve over time. It's totally normal. You know, series evolve over time. Like Final Fantasy is a huge example of that. If you look at the NES, SNES, PlayStation era, compare them to where we're at with 16, it is so far. They are not even in any way the same series anymore. They're not. You know, like Final Fantasy 16 is You could have named that game anything, and it would be fine. You didn't have to call it Final Fantasy 16. It could have been its own game. It's so far removed from what Final Fantasy's core identity used to be. You know, and that's not hating on 16. Like, I played through it, I platinumed it. I think the game is fine. I think as a game, it's fine. But as a Final Fantasy game, it's not. It's just not, right? It's got a whole slew of problems that make it not really a Final Fantasy game. But that's what I mean. Like, you can iterate so much that, like, you start losing your identity. And there is there is that caveat, but there's also the fact that, you know, there's that whole age-old, the more you love something, the easier it is to hate it. And that's unfortunately very accurate. It's, you know, ignorance is bliss in that regard, right? Because the more you love a thing, the easier it is to see all the flaws with that thing, you know, when it's presented to you, because you know it so well, you know it so inside and out, and you're almost looking for the bad. I'm trying my best to not do that, but I understand that it's hard to split that. You know, like, I have my thoughts, I have my opinions, and I didn't want to go into this and have these negative thoughts and opinions, but it just, you know, they're there. And again, there is a lot of good too, so don't get me wrong, but like, I have to be honest. I have to talk about it regardless, right? I can't just, like, I'm not just gonna say, like, oh my god, you're feeding me Castlevania and I'm eating it up and that's awesome, you know, like, because it was a shit sandwich that you named Castlevania. That's just not, that's not honest, and I think that's dumb. So let's talk about, like, Castlevania as it's presented to the general public. I'm going to do my best to not try to sound like this, like, prude, pretentious, like, that's not my Castlevania. Like, but I understand how, to a degree, it's going to sound a little bit like that. I don't mean it to be, but hopefully, you know, hopefully I can articulate this well enough that you guys get where I'm coming from. But, like, I feel like a lot of people just don't get Castlevania. They don't get what makes a game Castlevania. What they don't understand the identity, right? Castlevania to a lot of people is the Netflix show, and it is Symphony of the Night, and that is it. You know, go to fangamer.com. You know, type in Castlevania. You are going to see Symphony of the Night. That's it. You're not going to see anything else. You're going to see Alucard. You're going to see, like, no other real Belmonts. You're going to see Symphony of the Night. And of course, you know, the Netflix show really brought Symphony of the Night to the public's eye, and that's a good thing. It is good that, like, it got people talking and thinking about Castlevania, but at the same time, I feel like that's also, in a way, poisoned the waters a little bit, because, like, people want to know, well, what's going on with Trevor? What's going on with Alucard? What's going on with, I guess, Richter now, because they did Castlevania Nocturne. But, like, those stories are done. They're over with, right? They should be. But they're not, because Trevor is back in action. Not really. I mean, he's back. He's mentioned in the trailer, but he's still there, right? Because you had to tie it to Trevor somehow, because we got to try to get as many people that know as little about Castlevania as possible to understand that this is tied to that. And again, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just that's just how marketing works, right? That's how you want to get as many eyes and as many people on your product as possible. So why not, you know, get the Castlevania fans, get the Castlevania Netflix fans, get the normies, whatever, because that's the whole point. At the end of the day, they're trying to make money, so it makes sense. You know, I like the Netflix show. I mean, it's literally sitting right there. You can see it, you know, sitting back there. But, like, and I like Symphony of the Night. I talked about it on this channel for over an hour, all 7 versions of it. So, like, it's not that I dislike those things. It's just that, like, to me, Castlevania is more than that. It's the NES games. The SNES games. It's, you know, it's the N64 and PS2 games. There's so much more world that exists, spanning hundreds of years, mind you. But, like, they really want to, like, just kind of centralize it into this, like, little piece, this little area over here where, like, things happen, you know, Symphony of the Night stuff and Castlevania 3. I get why they do it, but, like, I'm just not a fan of it. You know, I don't need to see more Trevor stuff. I don't care. I mean, I do care, but, you know, I want more. I want something different. I want new characters. Which, yes, this female protagonist, whether it's Sonya or not, which, if it is Sonya, is a little weird. I mean, I'm all for it, but, like, she's supposed to be the first Belmont. I know they all had a whole thing with canon and making her not really exist from Castlevania Legends, but, like, regardless, we didn't need to have that little extra jingling keys of here, you know, Trevor Belmont, we said his name. So that's my little, I guess, rant about that. But that's story stuff. So does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, I've said this in my Castlevania videos, who cares all that much about the story of Castlevania? It doesn't really matter. I know, as I said, after I just rambled on about it. So the next thing is with the gameplay. And it makes me a little worried that, like, Motion Twin or a lot of indie devs in general might just, they don't get what makes Castlevania gameplay Castlevania. And I know that sounds so arrogant as I say it out loud, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but like there's this, again, this comes from the whole, like, you love something so much that you see it and you're like, that's not right. But like, you know, if you go to Steam and you type in Metroidvania, you will see just a slew of games, right? But how many of them, when you watch the trailer, is really triggering, like scratching that itch in your brain going, ooh, that looks like Castlevania. That does it. Whether it's the art or whether it's the gameplay, the music, whatever. How many really scratch that itch for you? Because for me, it's barely any. It's not that many, because a lot of people don't seem to understand what makes the gameplay so fun and what makes the gameplay, you know, so unique. And, you know, the first thing that always comes to mind whenever I see Castlevania, like, or Metroidvania things, is, first of all, like, a lot of people have this idea that, like, Castlevania and Dark Souls are the same thing. They're really not. You see a lot of bleed over between the two genres nowadays. I don't think this is going to have that. If it does, whatever. I don't think it's going to. But obviously, like, Hollow Knight has a lot of that, you know, which, again, love Hollow Knight, love Silksong. But, like, you do see that in a lot of games. You see a lot of bleed over between, like, the Metroidvania style games and, like, Dark Souls style games. Another thing is the combat. A lot of times when you see these Metroidvania style games on, like, Steam, the combat is way too fast. It's like they basically took, like, the fast anime action style Devil May Cry style of combat and converted that into a 2D game, and they call it Metroidvania. But, like, that's never been Metroidvania. That's not how any of these games play. It's never how these games have played. You know, we could obviously, you know, going back to the classic Vania series 1 through 3 for Dracula X, Rondo of Blood, like, you know, the combat is very stiff. And I'm not saying, like, it should be that going forward. I'm just saying, like, that's how it's always been, right? It's all about placement, you know, like placing yourself just far enough away from the enemies, you know, sub-weapon placement. Like, it's very meticulous in that regard. And you can be fast, but, like, it's not like you're not doing combos or anything. It is what it is. And then as we got into the, like, more like Igavania style games, you know, with, you know, Symphony of the Night and, like, all the GBA and DS games, again, the combat was never fast. It was never like these combos that you're doing where you're just, like, hacking away and everything's like a sponge. That's just never, like, the only time that, like, an enemy is a sponge in those games is when it's like a giant guard armor, and that's, like, kind of a unique situation, right? For the most part, the most combos you're doing is, like, you know, jump attack when you land, backdash and attack. You'll get, like, 3 quick attacks, maybe throw out a sub weapon while it's going on, and you feel good while you do it, but, like, you're not doing, like, a whole bunch of, like, flashy attacks. That's just again never how these games have ever played. And even with, like, even with the 3D games, it's been more about placement of, you know, where you're at, just kind of in a 3-dimensional realm. It's never been like, we could say that, like, you know, in the PS2 era they started getting a little bit more into that, like, actiony Devil May Cry territory, but, you know, it still, for the most part, felt pretty Castlevania-like. As much as you could make a Castlevania game in 3D feel like a Castlevania game. But when it comes to 2D games, that's never been the case, right? But I see so many games, they really want this, like, fast anime action style, and I'm like, and I look at it and I'm like, you know, I'm not saying that that's bad for a game, but, like, that's when did you play Castlevania and you were like, yep, these two things feel the exact same to me, you know? Like, if you want that style of game, that's totally fine, but, like, is it still Castlevania at that point? Like, is it still the same series, you know? And we start getting into this weird territory of, like, you know, again, iteration versus, you know, the original feel of a series and whatnot. But like, I don't feel like a lot of people get it. And I know, like, it's like, it makes me, I'm sure it makes me sound crazy. I'm sure it makes me sound like this weird, like, Castlevania, like, prude. And I'm really trying not to sound that way, but like, there's no other way to say it besides just to say it, you know? Like, I just feel like sometimes people just don't get what makes the series a series. And I will fully admit that that's maybe it's just, that's what makes it the series to me, you know? Maybe there's something else that makes it Castlevania to everybody else, and that's fine. You know, I'm okay being wrong in that regards, but in that same light, it just means that I'm just not as excited when I see games that call themselves like, you know, a Metroidvania game, because it's like they're just saying that because there's exploration. They're just saying that because it's just like a big map, and not because it feels like you know, that game. So, you know, that's a whole other thing, right? Like, it's like, and I look at it and I'm like, that's my worry, is that that's kind of where we're going with Belmont's Curse. So let me talk a little bit more about actually Belmont's Curse now. So when I first went to watch this, I was going to do like a react video, right? Like, I played the trailer, I pressed record, and then I just kind of stared and I didn't say a word. And it wasn't because the trailer was bad or anything. It's just because I realized I cannot make react content at all. Like, that's just not who I am. Like, there's never been a time I've ever seen a trailer for anything that I've been super excited for, where I'm like, you know, hooting and hollering and like being blown away. Like, I feel like, if I'm being honest, I feel like a lot of that is just people acting, you know. It's not that, I don't know, like, I have to take the time to process what I'm seeing. And the most, though, you'll get out of me is like, oh, that's cool. But like, that's not entertaining to watch. So like, that whole thing got scrapped. I was not gonna put that out there because that's stupid and who cares, right? So, you know, that being said, you know, I watched the trailer and I wanted to have more of a reaction than I did. Okay, first of all, can I just get this out of the way? I think it's really weird that the Castlevania 40th anniversary logo is using the new Castlevania logo that they started using like in the DS era of games, and then like the Castlevania Belmont's Curse game is using the old Castlevania logo. Like, does anybody else find that's weird? Like, they could have picked one or the other, but they like did both. But like the new game gets the old logo, but like the 40th anniversary stuff gets like the new logo. And I say new, but it's like 20 years old now. But like, anyway, that's irrelevant, but something I noticed. I don't want to be like, you know, repeating what a lot of people have said of like, it looks like Dead Cells, but like, it does look like Dead Cells. And that's not anything against Dead Cells. Truth be told, like, I like Dead Cells. I didn't play it until they announced like the Castlevania DLC, and I immediately bought it and played it, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Like, I had a blast playing through it. You know, and again, you fall into that whole thing of like, it's Castlevania DLC. It's really Symphony of the Night DLC, but, you know, again, there's that whole zeitgeist thing of how people perceive Castlevania. But like, it was fun, you know, and I think they, for the world inside of Dead Cells, they did a good job representing Castlevania in that world as best you can, right? Because it still has to have the Dead Cells identity to it. But now that you've broken free of that, to me, it's like, when I'm looking at the art style, when I'm looking at like the movement, when I'm looking at the map layout, when I'm looking at any of it, it doesn't look like Castlevania to me. And again, it's okay for art to change, but, and I've said this in some of my older videos too, if you go and look at like the older Castlevania games on the NES, and then you look at the SNES games, and then you look at the up to the DS, right? Yes, the artwork has miraculously gotten better. I say miraculous, that's not the right word. Not because it's amazing that it got better. It's kind of what's going to happen over the span of 20 years. But the art's gotten way better, right? The sprite work is phenomenal in like the DS games. And a lot of that started with Rondo of Blood. But like, it all still has the same identity visually. Like, there's something about like the faces of Castlevania characters. They always have like a kind of like a little smudgy little face. Like, you could see it, like in the original sprites, like Simon and Trevor. Like I'm assuming that's supposed to be their eyes. I don't know what it's like. It's a weird little smudge on their face, and they kind of like have that same like weird smudgy face all the way in the DS games. Like even like Jonathan has that same look. Like you could look at these characters and go, oh yeah, they're from the same series. But I don't see that at all in these new games at all. Like it looks like just not like Flash animation, but it just looks too clean. And, you know, and I'm not saying it has to be sprite work, but it just doesn't look like super appealing to me. Now to get this out of the way, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of like 2.5D. Like I would have loved games that just stick with sprites. I think it's better. I understand why they don't. It's more expensive. It's more time consuming. It's easier to just rig a model and do it that way. But I still am going to have my preference either way, right? But if you look at a game like Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, and also the, you know, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon games, they still look and feel like Castlevania. So even though like Bloodstained is not a Castlevania game, it has like, you know, Igarashi's touch to it, but it's not a Castlevania game. But like somehow like the art style for the most part, and I say this more or less with the character art, still looks and feels like it's evoking Castlevania. I am just not getting that feeling, that vibe from Belmont's Curse. There's some scenes in the trailer that I've seen that look pretty good. Like there's a scene early on in the trailer where she's like running up some stairs and it's flat and then she runs up some more stairs. But like in the background, it's very green, right? It looks very vibrant. I think it might be like, I'm not sure if it's a graveyard, but like it kind of looks like a graveyard-esque. Like I'm not really sure what the setting is there, but like it looks good. I think that looks great. But then a lot of other scenes that I see, there's like this weird clash between like the background and the foreground. Like they just don't seem to mesh as well. And it's something that I always it's something that, again, I feel that I saw a lot in Dead Cells, right? With Dead Cells, like the back, and maybe it's because Dead Cells was, you know, it's a roguelike, right? So like the maps are randomly generated. So like the foreground map that you're running around on in the background, there's always like this kind of like weird uncanniness to them. Like they don't quite mesh as well because like one is just kind of like a background image that's going to be for the general like theme of the area that you're in, and the foreground is just like randomly generated boxes that you're running through. I don't think this is gonna be that way. I think there's gonna be a set map, but it doesn't change the fact that like that's kind of the feeling that it's evoking right now. That there's like this weird disconnect between the foreground and the background. Again, we've seen very little from this, right? Snippets. So like, again, love to be wrong, hoping I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how I've perceived it. Like when I look at it, I'm like, it looks like a cool background image, and they made like a foreground that you're running around in that's like not, it doesn't really feel like it's all connected there. You know, I don't feel like I'm running through the castle. I don't feel like I'm running through the setting. And again, it doesn't have to be the castle. Like you can be other settings. There's plenty of Castlevanias that did it. I mean, Simon's Quest, Castlevania 3, before, I mean, hell, a good chunk of the game takes place outside of Castlevania and Castlevania 3. But like the backgrounds feel like they're connected to the locations that you're in. You know, of course, Order of Ecclesia, same way. Like the backgrounds feel connected to those regions. I'm just not getting that with this. And I think it's like, I'm looking at it now, and I think it's like, there's a scene with like, you know, there's like a skeleton zombie here, and like there's like these like alternating decks. It's a very red kind of setting. I guess it's like a town, I'm not really sure, but like it just doesn't look like, it doesn't look like a setting that like it looks like kind of randomly generated, you know. It looks like, it doesn't look like somebody drew, like not hand drew it, but they really planned this out. It looks like they just kind of placed platforms in here, and that's just kind of what it is, and they did the art around it. I don't know their process. I don't claim to know their process on this, but like it just doesn't look like these were very well. I'm literally watching the trailer as I say this, so I guess I'm kind of reacting to it. But like, it doesn't look like these are very well like thought out between the background and the foreground. Maybe it's two different people working on it. Again, I don't know. Maybe they had somebody design on the backgrounds, they had somebody design on the foregrounds, they threw them all together. But like, it just doesn't. I don't know. Again, these are very, 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 very small little snippets of the game. They are extremely small, so it's really hard to judge, and I'm trying to my best to not be like super negative about it. But that's just like, those are my first thoughts. It's like, I didn't see it and I didn't go like, oh, you know, this is, you know, it looks like Castlevania. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit too much about that now. But that being said, I think there are parts of the combat that look really cool. Again, I'm a big fan of the fact that it seems like this mysterious nameless character, she uses a whip. I'm assuming they're gonna pull some like, it's Sonya, because they, you know, made her not canon from Castlevania Legends, so you might as well use that character now. And you know, it makes it really weird if you try to connect to them, because you couldn't. But like, I do like the fact that her whip animations look cool, even if they do look a little too flashy for the type of game it is. I don't know, guys. There's a scene in the trailer where like she opens up a chest and like a card flashes on the screen and it's like a whip. I hate it. And again, I feel so bad. But like, what about that? Doesn't that just look boring to you? Does that look like Castlevania? Doesn't that just look like, doesn't that like feel like bleed like roguelike to you? Like, it doesn't feel, I don't know, man. Like, that looks boring to me. I don't like, visually, aesthetically, just does not look good. Like, why? What is that? I don't like that. Like, I would much rather open a chest and have a little blurb in the bottom corner that's like, you know, leather whip, whatever. That's fine. I don't need this big, like, I don't know. It just looks tacky. It just looks tacky to me. And I hate that I'm saying that, but I'm saying it. It looks tacky. It's hard to gauge my actual feelings on this because, again, we are seeing seconds of gameplay, right? Like, they didn't give us, like, here's the first chunk. They just kind of gave us, like, flashes of here, she's running through this. Now, here's part of a cutscene. Now she's running through here, and here's part of a cutscene. So, again, it's very, very hard to give, like, an honest, true opinion on it. There are things I do like. I mean, there's a scene, it reminded me very much of, like, Donkey Kong Country Returns, where she's, like, running, it's very red, and she's kind of, like, silhouetted out. That looks awesome, and I think that's, like, I don't know if that's, like, an early game part, or if that's late game. It looks really cool. I dig that whole aesthetic there. I think her design looks really cool. You know, when she is whipping enemies, there are certain times it does look Castlevania-like, you know, and I want to give it like its due diligence. There are times where like her whip animations look very like just one solid whip or two solid whips and an enemy's down, and it looks great. I feel like there's a difference in how a game is marketed versus how it actually is, right? And I know that like when it comes to marketing, it's got to be flashy, it's got to be, you know, in your face, got to catch the eye. And so I totally get that could also be what we're seeing, you know, like all these like crazy flashy animations and stuff that like I'm saying like it doesn't look like Castlevania. Like that could just be very small, tiny chunks of something. I mean, if I could easily edit together something that would make Circle of the Moon look like this, you know, like there's enough like animations and enough like DSS card like combos that you can do where like you can like really make like you could make it look like that game is like so action oriented if you like just cut things properly. Like you do one big DSS animation, like, you know, whether you're having him swing the hammer or like doing a big like AoE, you could make it look very flashy depending on the editing. So I want to let that be known that like I do realize there's a difference in how the game developers are designing the game versus how the marketing team is choosing to market the game. And I think that's another thing that we also should always, for all games, mind you, keep in mind that like how the game is designed versus how it is marketed, they can be totally different. I mean, you see it in movies, you see it in everything, right? That's marketing 101. So like, I do want to acknowledge that my complaint that I do have could just be marketing. It just could be, that's just what it is, you know. I think that like once we get a real trailer, like a real like here, or not even so much trailer, real gameplay, like here's the first 10 minutes of just solid gameplay, I'll really be able to establish like a real feeling on it. But right now, I guess my overall feelings is like I'm happy, but I'm apprehensive. I do worry a little bit about the fact that like, you know, are they just slapping Castlevania on a Metroidvania style indie game that doesn't really get what Castlevania's identity is? A little bit. You know, am I worried that they're just kind of, you know, leaning a lot heavy into the, you know, Netflix Symphony of the Night fandom, I guess we'll say. for lack of a better term, like the normie crowd, the people who like that's what they know from Castlevania. Like you say, do you like Castlevania? Like, oh man, Symphony of the Night was awesome. You know, like that's normal. There's nothing against, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I realize, I fully, totally understand that I'm in the minority here when it comes to Castlevania fans. You know, like most people, like they like a game or a couple of games and they're happy with it and that's it. Like, so I don't want any of this to be taken like I'm just like this super big hater of this, because I'm not. It's just, again, it falls back into that the more you love something, the easier it is to hate it or to see the cracks in it. And there's a fine line between criticism and critique. And, you know, I want to voice my real opinions with you guys. I want to tell you how I actually feel and not just like, you know, gobble up what's given to me and say this is awesome and I see no problems with it, because that's just disingenuous to you. It's disingenuous to me. Like I want to actually give you my real feelings. I'm going to play the hell out of this game. I can tell you that right now. I'm going to get it. I'm going to play the hell out of it. I'll probably platinum it. I'll probably do everything in it because it's Castlevania. I mean, like it's, you know, I love the Game Boy Castlevania games, you know, like I am a Simon's Quest diehard fan. You know, I love Dracula X, you know, like, so the games that I like, the N64 games, like the games that people don't like, I do like. So, you know, and it's not that I don't have problems with those games either. I have problems with every game ever, because who doesn't? But like the thing is not about like, it's not about like having problems with the game and then just hating on it. Like you can have problems with the game and still play it and enjoy it, and it can still be one of your favorite games. That's the point that I'm trying to get across here, is that like I think that I will probably play this game and have a blast with it. You know, I will probably play this game and, you know, I'm sure at some point they're going to tug them. I fully acknowledge the fact that I'm over here like saying things like, oh yeah, they're going for the Netflix crowd and they're going for the, you know, Symphony of the Night crowd. But I guarantee you that like if they played a song from Symphony of the Night, I'd be like, oh, you know, like they did it. They played that song, you know, like Marble Gallery, you know, like I would still lose my mind in those moments, because like because it's not that I don't get like hype for things. Like I know I say when it comes to like reactions, like when it comes to reaction videos, like I'm bad at them. It's because like I can't really react to a video. I get very hyped when I'm playing like a game for the first time, when I'm experiencing the game and I'm sitting there holding the controller and I'm like, I'm in it. I revert back to being a child again. So like I will be hyped for this game. I know that like every little key jingling thing that I'm like sitting here pitching about, they're going to get me with, and I'm going to eat it up and I'm going to be excited for it. You know, if somehow, you know, they bring out Trevor Belmont's 80-year-old corpse and he has one final, like he saves the day for 5 seconds, you know, does a really cool anime, like now it's your turn, you take over, whatever, I will eat that shit up. So like, you know, again, I don't want this to come off as like, oh, AJ just hates this new stuff, because I don't. It's just my worry is that, you know, I still want the older things, and I understand it's been 20 years, you know, 18 years. It's been a long time. I get it. Games evolve, but like, you know, there is a whole, maybe I'll do a video on this because it's a topic I have wanted to talk about, but there is a whole thing about like, sometimes people really want series to evolve, and I'm not really that person, and I don't really understand why, right? Because like, to me, I look at like, if there's stuff that I want, then another game's probably already doing it. Like I want Castlevania because I like Castlevania. I like the clunky stuff. I like whether it was the clunky NES stuff or the clunky Igavania stuff. Like I like that because I like it. You could just keep pumping out games that looked like the DS games for all eternity, and I would be happy with that. And if I wanted something different that wasn't that, I would play other games, which I do. So, you know, I don't like the idea of like taking a game and transforming it so much to try to appeal to an audience that like wasn't going to play it to begin with. And that's kind of where we're at with Final Fantasy, right? Like going back to that, it's like they've taken this series and it's like, oh, people don't like turn-based combat. Well, then don't play Final Fantasy, you know, like that's okay. You know, like it's okay to like an action-oriented style game, an action-oriented, you know, fantasy game. That's fine. You can play those games, but like, why did you take my thing and turn it into your thing? And that's, you know, again, that's a whole topic I could probably talk about in an actual scripted, written out video. If you guys want to see it, let me know. Because I think that's kind of that's kind of where I'm at with the core of this, right? Is that like, I just don't want them to take this thing that like that already has a very well established identity and turn it into something else and just slap the name on it. Like, that's a little bit what I'm worried about. Will that happen? I don't know. But, you know, that's kind of where we're at with this. Welcome back to the version of me that's seen the second trailer. And I have to say right off the bat that it has not changed my feelings at all. It's actually solidified my initial feelings on that first trailer. I want to say right off the bat, I'm going to buy this game. I'm going to play this game, and I will probably have fun with this game. But that doesn't mean that it's in any way scratching that Castlevania itch for me. So, okay, this is actually my third time recording this video. The first time, my video messed up. The second time, my audio messed up. So I'm really hoping, third time's a charm here, that this just works. But what that means is I've had more time to watch the trailer and kind of like digest a little bit and think a little bit more about what's bothering me about it. I don't know if I'll be able to articulate it any better because I didn't write anything out. I just kind of have been thinking about it. But let me explain, I guess, my grievances with what I've been seeing so far. First and foremost, let me just say I'm not like objectively correct here. I'm not trying to change anyone's opinions on the trailer. If you like it, totally fine. This isn't like some sort of like, you know, me versus them or anything like that. This is just my thoughts and feelings on it. There's no battle to be won here. It is just how I feel about it. So if you feel a different way, totally fine. Let's talk about it down below. But I just want to make that very clear. This is not, you are more than entitled to your opinion. Not trying to dissuade anybody either way. So just want to make that very clear. I said after the original trailer that it wasn't really capturing the vibe, the feel of Castlevania. And I really still feel that way. When I look at this does not look like Castlevania to me. And I don't know if it's just the art style or just the general aesthetic they're going with, but like there's so many like small issues that I have with it that when I look at it, like when I step back, I'm like, this just looks like they took the Castlevania name and slapped it onto any generic indie like Metroidvania style game. Like when you look at this, you tell me that you don't see like either like, you know, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, or the Rogue Prince of Persia. Like, come on, especially the Rogue Prince of Persia. That's also the same developers, right? But like you look at it and it doesn't, like, there's a feeling that you get with Castlevania that I'm just not getting with this. So focusing on the design of the levels here, if you go like 37 seconds into the trailer, I'll just put it up here so you guys can see it. There's a room here where like the Belmont character, pretty sure it's Sonia, but we'll just say the Belmont for now because it's not totally confirmed yet. She's like sliding under an axe. There's an enemy with like a hood on holding a big, you know, spear. I look at this and it doesn't look like a room that would ever be in Castlevania, right? This looks like a room that would be in Dead Cells. Like it's like this weird small microcosm style room that looks like it's been placed into a much bigger, larger room. So there is no like cohesion between the foreground and the background. There is just like, it's just like a small room, and it's like it doesn't have that. It's not evoking that same feeling of Castlevania, you know. Like, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but like it's, and again, maybe without a script, it's just harder for me to articulate my feelings on this. So maybe this was a huge mistake and I shouldn't have done it unscripted, but we're here now, so whatever. But like when I look at this, the first thing I think of is the Promenade of the Condemned, like the second stage from Dead Cells, like where it was very much like a kind of just a big area you're going through, and then you have like a lot of these like little microcosm rooms, like little houses or whatever, but they never really felt like they were connected to the world. They were just kind of floating there. That's what this is. And that's like the very next location they show right after that, like 40 seconds into the trailer. Again, I'll put it up here. Same deal, you know, like this looks like it would belong in Dead Cells. Hell, this actually kind of, this area here, it looks like it would belong more like in kind of a Hollow Knight situation, because Hollow Knight, not so much like Dead Cells where like they don't have that like cohesion between like the foreground aesthetic and the background. They do a little bit better job with it, but like it's just the general design of it, the general aesthetic of this, right? It does not look like Castlevania. Like, first of all, Castlevania's never been a big thing with like spikes all over the place. Like that's not really a thing. Like you have that in like the end game areas, like the clock tower. But this is clearly, I mean, I could be wrong, but this is probably the beginning of the game. This is most likely France is on fire. The Dracula's forces have invaded or whatever. And here you go through whatever location this is in. I mean, again, I could be wrong, but still, when I see a load of spikes like this, I see generic indie, like Metroidvania style game. That's what we've been seeing. Like this level design, this style of level design does not match that of Castlevania. In this trailer, they've confirmed, it takes place in Paris, and then eventually, at some point in time, Dracula's castle is going to appear. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of rolling my eyes at that, because like, at the end of the day, I care more about the setting of Castlevania than like, and by that I mean like the actual castle. That's why you play the game, right? I mean, like, obviously the gameplay and everything, but like, it's a unique atmosphere every time you enter it. Like, Castlevania is chaos and it takes a different form, like the library will look different. Maybe there won't be a library. There'll be different types of like weird science labs. There might be a prison, there might be no prison. Who knows? Like, every little biome is different. There could be caves, there could be catacombs, there could be, it doesn't matter. There's so many different things that exist in Castlevania, and it's fun going from area to area to area and seeing those things. I don't give a shit about Paris, France. Like, not in my Castlevania game, like, I don't care, And yes, I know that like in Castlevania Bloodlines, you go all across Europe or whatever, so it's not like they haven't technically done this before, but there was something about Bloodlines, and it could have been the limitations of the system at the time, being on the Genesis and whatnot, but like, you never really felt like you were in those locations, like Greece doesn't really feel like Greece, or like when you're, I guess the only thing that's like very, very much stood out was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, like, I guess it was a little too on the nose, but for the most part, you just kind of feel like you're in this fictional world, right? And that's how Castlevania should always be. I think that when it comes to like the setting of that world, it needs to be like divested away from our world. Like, yeah, it still takes place in like on Earth, but like Wallachia and all that is like kind of its own little thing. Like, you wouldn't walk around, you couldn't look at the map of Castlevania 2 or 3 or hell, even Order of Ecclesia, right? You don't look at those maps and go, oh, I could place that in a real world spot. It's still fantasy. It's still a fictional, like plenty of fictional locations, plenty of fictional towns. So they take place outside of the castle, yes, and you eventually get to the castle, but the fantasy is still there, and the soul and the aesthetic and the design philosophy behind everything is still there. Another example is Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, right? You have numerous times you go into these portraits, and whether you're going into the portraits and like those portraits are their own location, or if those portraits are supposed to be like a teleporter to another location in the real world or whatever, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant. Regardless, those are locations that don't take place in Castlevania. But the philosophy of the design still matches and feels very much like Castlevania. So when you have like the Forest of the Damned or whatever, there is like you start off in the woods and then you go to the right and there's like kind of a big church. And yes, you could say like, oh, well, that's like a small biome and a big biome, but it's like, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're walking through the woods and you enter a church, you explore this kind of church area, you exit, you're back in the forest, you go down underground, you fight the frogs and whatever, the tombstones, and it all feels very much like it belongs in the world that they were presenting. I think the one time they kind of failed at that were like the circus levels, which I've already bitched and moaned about those in my actual Portrait of Ruin videos, like the music and the aesthetic of those, just wasn't a fan of it, but like those always felt out of place to me. But every other location, even like the desert, still matched the general vibe and the general feel and had that soul of Castlevania. When you go into the pyramid and the way the pyramid is designed, those rooms, like, it wasn't just like, okay, here's a desert and now we have this like kind of weird floating like pyramid room that you go through. It's like, it feels like everything's actually connected. That is not how like Evil Empire designs their levels. It's just not. Nothing feels connected. Everything feels like they designed the background and they slapped the foreground on it and it's not connected, and now I'm just in a little microcosm room in a big room. And it bothers the hell out of me. And it bothered me in the first trailer, and it's bothering me in this trailer, and it makes me feel, again, that, like, they just don't get the design of these games. You know, like, this feels like Prince of Persia. This feels like any other... Again, I know I said this, but it feels like any other generic, indie Metroidvania game. I'm sure the game is gonna be fun. I'm sure it's still, like, a blast, but, like... It you know, in the same way that, like, I'm a big Metal Gear fan, right? I put a lot of time in Metal Gear Solid 5. It was a very fun game, but it was not a very good Metal Gear game. You know, at the end of the day, it was so far removed from everything else that, like, made all the previous Metal Gear games so good that the soul was kind of sucked out of it, and we had this weird, whatever, you know. That's what we're starting to feel like with this. And, like, you know, I look at Mega Man, right? Mega Man has changed art styles and aesthetics numerous times. Whether you have the 8-bit style from 1 through 6 and then 9 and 10, or the 16-bit like Mega Man 7 on the Super Nintendo, or the 16-bit, I guess technically 32-bit if you want to say, like on the PlayStation with Mega Man 8, or Mega Man in base mimicking the same art style also on the Super Nintendo, and of course Mega Man 11 going to the whole 2.5D. Like, they've all had their own art style, but at their core, when you look at the design, when you look at the design philosophies of these levels, it feels and looks like Mega Man. You know, no matter how much the art changed, how much the aesthetic changed. Like, yeah, like, I always kind of preferred Mega Man being like a stocky little guy, and they've, you know, elongated him and, you know, made him his proportions a little bit more normalized or whatever, and kind of given him more of an anime aesthetic. But, like, even when playing the games, still feels like Mega Man. Even like Mega Man 7, when he's like gigantic and blocky and huge, still feels like Mega Man. The vibe of the game still feels like Mega Man. The soul of the game, the visuals of the game feel like Mega Man. This does not feel like Castlevania. There's nothing here that, like, I'm looking at it and the art is just so boring. Like, it is, and that is not. I know that probably sounds very harsh. I couldn't make this. I'm not an artist. I couldn't draw any of this. I couldn't do this, right? So that's not to say that the people who made this aren't, like, talented in their craft. I'm just saying that, like, it doesn't match the general aesthetic of Castlevania. Not to sound like, again, I know I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm ranting here, but, like, these are just my unfiltered opinions, so that's what you get when you don't write a script. But, like, it kind of feels like like Evil Empire, or, like, it kind of feels like they're a little bit of a one-trick pony, right? Like, they design a certain style of game, and therefore all other games have to have that kind of similar art style. And it's like, guys, you can make games that look different, you know? Like, you don't have, like, it doesn't have, like it should still look like a Castlevania game. It shouldn't look like an Evil Empire game, you know? Which is kind of what I feel like we're looking at here. We're looking at the you know, I don't know. It's okay. Let me know if I'm making sense here, because I do feel like I'm kind of rambling a little bit in my antics. But, like, jumping forward a little bit in the trailer, I want to talk about the combat. Again, I'm still getting that same vibe, man. It's too fast. It's not Castlevania combat. You know, this is that action. Like, what if you took Devil May Cry and made it 2D? You know, like, it's flashy, it's quick. It's not Castlevania combat. It's its own weird, flashy whatever. Now, again, we're seeing clips. We didn't see, like, so much here. They're trying to make it look flashy. They're trying to make it look good. I get that. It could be a little bit blockier than normal. I don't know. But from what I'm seeing, that's the vibe I'm getting. You know, like, she slides under like Joan of Arc's legs, which we'll get to that in a second. And, you know, that slide is like, does she have iframes? I don't know. I mean, you know, we've been able to slide and damage enemies in the past. Usually, though, if you hit them and they have more, like, if it doesn't kill them, then you take damage. I don't know if that was like an iframe slide, or if she just actually went under the legs and there's no hitbox down there. Not sure how that works. She kind of got a backdash. I don't know. It just looks too fast. But again, the magic of editing, right, could make anything look a little bit, like, more flashy and fast than intended. So I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. But right now, still not feeling it. But why is Joan of Arc a boss? Like, what? Like, that's a real historical figure. Joan of Arc really actually existed in our world. Joan of Arc is not a myth. Joan of Arc is an actual woman who existed. I'm sure most of you already know this, but Castlevania started off using like old Hammerfell movie monsters as like their bosses, right? So, you know, whether it was like Frankenstein's monster or the Mummy, the Wolfman, etc. Like that's kind of how it all started, like way back in the 80s. And then over time, they've really expanded upon that, and they've made their own like weird little demons and stuff, whether it's like Adramelech, the goat demon thing from Circle of the Moon or whatever have you, you know. But they've always like, it's always been mythological creatures. Like it's always been things that don't exist. They're from some mythology around the world, and Castlevania is not shy from borrowing from various mythologies. What's so weird about this is that this wasn't them borrowing from mythology. Joan of Arc is a real historical figure, right? That's like, it's just weird, right? I always find, and this isn't just a Castlevania thing. I always find it a little weird when games insert like a real human character into like their world. It's kind of like how Assassin's Creed and like Assassin's Creed 2, like Ezio just becomes best friends with like Leonardo da Vinci, and you know, he like invents a gun for him. Like there's a whole like there's a whole insanity with that, right? And you always kind of look at it and you're like, okay, it's like it's a fictional version of reality, sure, but something about like this, I don't know, something about like Joan of Arc, this person who like fought and died, and like, you know, this like 19-year-old girl who is fighting against the English in like our real world, and they're like, wouldn't it be fun if we just took her and made up a story about how she became corrupted and now she's, I guess, fighting for the forces of evil? Like, wouldn't that be fun? Like, that's so weird. I mean, it's not like, I'm not like offended by it or anything, but I just find it genuinely weird. And honestly, it just feels like they just didn't have, again, like they don't understand Castlevania. You know, like, it's like, that's what it feels like. Like, you don't, why would you, it's like, are we going to get like a Castlevania that takes place in America, and they're going to be like, oh man, fighting a corrupted George Washington, and he's coming at you with his axe, and he's going to chop your cherry tree down. I don't know. Like, it's just so stupid, man. Like, there's a certain line that has to be drawn, because Castlevania at its core is campy. It's always been campy, and I'm okay with that. I mean, like, in the world of Castlevania, like, Dracula is somehow like higher tier than Satan. You know, like they have this weird thing where like Dracula is like I mean, he's higher tier than death, right? So I mean, it's silly, it's campy. It's always been like silly, campy fun. But that kind of like, I don't know, it feels a little like just stupid when you suddenly take like a real world historical figure and you're like, and then Joan of Arc appears and fights you, because, like, you can't make that sound good to me. You can't make that sound funny. I guess if it's anything, it's just funny because it's stupid. But, like, why? Why Joan of Arc? What was it? Because she's, like, you know, because she's French? And, I mean, they go on in this, and this is another tangent, I guess, but, like, this commentary guy, like, first of all, calling this a commentary trailer is, there was not enough commentary. This was just like a dude talking and making jokes for the most part. Like, oh man, we're not going to put baguettes and berets in there because we know you guys have seen enough of that. Like, we get it, man. Like, just talk about the game. Talk about the gameplay. That's what people actually want. You know, like, people want to hear the gameplay and the inspirations or whatnot, and how it's going to feel. Not just like, I don't know, like whatever this is. So like, when they're just inserting Joan of Arc into this, it's like they just, okay, you know, it's in France, so we're gonna have, you know, we're gonna be exploring Notre Dame because of course you are. You're gonna be exploring the catacombs because of course you are. Well, you know, Expedition 33, they already took a lot of the other French stereotypes, so throw Joan of Arc at it. It's like, that's kind of what this feels like, you know? Like, it's like, is that they didn't want to make a Castlevania game. They wanted to make what they think a Castlevania game should be. And I think that's kind of what's bothering me so much about it. And I know I'm being pretty harsh here, and like, but it kind of circles back to what I was saying back when I, you know, did my thing with the first trailer, right? Where it's like people look at a game and they go, well, I don't like those aspects of that game. I wish they'd remove them, and I wish they'd make this instead. Well, it's like, well, then But then it's not that. Then it's not the game you wanted. You want something different, and that's okay. Then make that other thing or play that other thing. Don't turn this thing into that thing. But that's kind of what this feels like. As for the locations themselves, again, like the issue isn't that it takes place in France. It's that they're like really going hard on the fact that it's like, okay, we have to go to Notre Dame and we're going to explore. We're going to go up in the Notre Dame, then you're going to go down into the catacombs. And like, I'm not playing Castlevania to explore France, right? Like I wasn't playing the previous Castlevania games to explore Europe. I wasn't like, because I never, like, it's a fantasy fictionalized version of those locations. Not that this isn't, but like they weren't so literal with their locations, right? So you get into this weird thing like, I don't care to go, like that's not what I want from a Castlevania game. I want to see the castle. Castlevania, the setting. Now they said like it's going to appear later on in the game. Who knows when that could be, right? It's not that that hasn't worked in the past. I mean, again, as I stated before, like Castlevania 2 and 3 take place outside the castle. Castlevania 3, like you're building your way up to the castle, and only the final couple of stages are in Castlevania. But the rest of the game felt like the world of Castlevania, right? Like the whole world itself was still Castlevania. You were making your way there, but you didn't feel like you were just like in locations that were like, you know, real world locations. You just felt like you were in a generic woods or swamp or graveyard or whatever. You know, and then you like, and another issue is you have like Order of Ecclesia, right? So much of Order of Ecclesia takes place outside of Castlevania, and it works. Those, again, none of those locations exist in the real world. But when we got to Castlevania, they spent so much time on all those other maps that Castlevania as a whole felt tiny. You know, like it didn't feel like they really like fleshed it out. Like you were just kind of like streamlined through every location. You know, it felt extremely linear when you finally got to Castlevania. Like the castle in Order of Ecclesia, like Castlevania in Order of Ecclesia, is just kind of a pale imitation of how the castle appears in like a majority of the other Castlevania games. Because so like there just wasn't like space for it, I guess. I don't know, you know, development time, whatever reason you want to give. It's just a very condensed version of the castle, and because of that, it's kind of lackluster at times. Like there's not really any like memorable settings. Like I close my eyes and I think about like, okay, there's like the weird library with books in the ground, and there's a spot where you fight like the Shadow Demon. Everything else just kind of blends together. You know, like there's a lot of candles there, so it stuck out, and there's a lot of books there, so it stuck out. Everything else blended together. There were no like really cool, fun like biomes and aesthetics and settings that took place in that version of the castle. And that's kind of what I worry about with this. If they're going to focus so much on like giving us like Notre Dame and giving us like, you know, the catacombs or whatever other French locations they want to show us, that takes away from showing us a new version of Castlevania. The main setting of the games, of the world, of the series. So like, I don't know. I'm a little worried about that. I don't know. When I look at these trailers, it's hard for me to see like what in the earlier games in the series inspired these devs in any way, right? Like because everything feels so surface level. That's like it's like, oh, there's a Medusa head and you got a whip. That's Castlevania, and it's like it's just the most very bare bones. It's an exploration game, you know. Like they're missing the point. They're missing the full like iceberg that is Castlevania. Like that's the heart and soul of the series. And instead they just made whatever the hell they wanted and like took a couple of surface level bits and pieces and they're calling it Castlevania. I don't know, man. Like I hate that I'm saying it out loud. But those are my feelings that on these trailers so far, and all this rambling that I've done, I kind of feel a little insane, if I'm being honest. I was looking through the trailer, like the credit, or not the credits, the comments, and like everybody's like eating it up. They're like, oh my god, this is amazing, I can't wait, you know. And it's like, I guess I'm alone in this. I don't know. I mean, I know I'm not. I know there's people who agree with me. I saw a couple of people who like, you know, who don't like the art or whatever, but like for the most part, I definitely feel like I'm in the minority here. And so it's like, not to sound like that, again, that pretentious person of like, maybe people just don't get what Castlevania is. But like, so, you know, I fully recognize that I could just be in the minority. But like, I still feel the way that I feel, you know, like, and I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to dissuade any of you from enjoying this or like magically make you like hate this. That's not the point. Like, I'm not saying like I'm objectively correct. Like, that's not what I'm doing here. This is just me voicing my unfiltered thoughts and ramblings about these two trailers and what I'm perceiving from them, you know, but that's it. Like this, if you like what you see here, that's totally fine. You know, I'm not saying you're wrong or you're incorrect for enjoying what you see here or liking what you see. When I say things like, I don't think they get what makes Castlevania Castlevania, like, ultimately, like, that's still my feelings on what make a game a Castlevania game, you know? Like, there's a certain vibe and aesthetic that I'm just not getting from this, you know? Like, look at the Transylvanian Adventure of Transylvanian Adventure of Simon Quest. Like, I feel that's not a Castlevania game, but it very much has the heart and soul of a Castlevania game. And I don't mean just because it like visually, like kind of aesthetically looks like it. There's a lot to the gameplay and a lot to like the world building in that game, right? It's not out yet, but whatever. You watch a trailer for it. Anyway, like there are just certain things that like some people can capture and some people can't capture. And I don't feel like they've captured that. I feel like they made whatever game they wanted and they just called it Castlevania. But if that's your vibe, if that's what you want and that's making you happy, then that's awesome, man. Just play the game, enjoy it, and who gives a shit about my opinion? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. This is just, again, you're not wrong, I'm not wrong, who cares, right? So, like, I don't want to take away your enjoyment, is what I'm getting at. Like, I in no way want to take away anybody's enjoyment from these trailers, from the upcoming release. Like, I want you to still enjoy it. I want you to still play the games and have fun. You know, but I think that people should also be like honest in their opinions on things, which is just what I'm doing. I'm just telling you my feelings, my thoughts. You know, I've said this before, but like, I always kind of like it when I talk about liking something and then somebody else comes along and tells me why they don't like that thing. Not like in an argumentative way, but I think it's fascinating to hear somebody else's perspective because it gives me a new viewpoint as to how the game is being perceived or whatever. And I think that's kind of the flip side of that. So, like, I would love to hear what you guys love about this, you know, like, or what you don't like about it. But, like, there is no right or wrong. It's just discussion. It's just fun to talk about video games. So, like, you know, I just want to make it very clear. I'm not trying to, like, there is no, you know, right or wrong here. There is no, like, call to arms. I'm not trying to, like, insult these developers or anything like that. It's just not vibing with me right now. But still probably going to play it anyway. Anyway, I've effectively doubled the length of this video on accident. Not intentional. I am tired of recording it. Like I said, this is the third time, so I'm losing my voice at this point. We're going to jump back to the ending of the original video. Yeah, so hope to see you guys in the comments. Let me know what you think. We'll talk more. Goodbye. I don't really think I have much more to talk about in regards to Belmont's Curse or the 40th anniversary stuff at the moment. You know, I hope this video didn't come off as just like old man yells at cloud for an hour. Apparently I've been recording for an hour, I guess. I know that when I edit this down, it's going to be hopefully much shorter. But like, I really hope that doesn't just come off that way. Like, I don't know, like the way when I'm saying things, like, to me, it makes sense. And like, I'm like, well, you know, to me, I'm just trying to explain, like, here, I like this thing and I see the faults in it, but like, it's not that I'm not being a hater is what I'm trying to say. You know, like, I know it might come off that way or it might sound that way, but again, you just fall back into that whole, like, you love something, you care about it. And one of the things that bothers me is when, and I'm not calling out anyone specific, but like, there are people out there who like, they're such a fan of something. And you always kind of question, like, is it for show? You know, like you could give them anything related to a thing, and like, it could be absolute garbage, but it's the name of the thing they love, and they like melt and they lose their mind over it. And I'm like, well, do you really like it? You know, I don't know. And maybe I'm just too cynical in that regards. Maybe they really do. Maybe it's not. Maybe, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, my point is, I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want you guys to be like, oh, well, you made all these videos about Castlevania. Why aren't you like just hyping this up to, you know, it's amazing, it's Castlevania, AJ. Like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want you guys to be like, you know, like, I've always tried to be like honest in my reviews of these games. Like, even the ones like Order of Ecclesia, right? Like, I mean, I talked about the game and I said, like, yeah, I think I think it's the worst of the 3DS games, but I still love the game, you know. Or like when I talked about Symphony of the Night, like I talked about the game for so long, and that game means so much to me. But it's not my favorite Castlevania game. I love it, but I think there's a lot of issues with it, and I don't like, you know, how, you know, everything gets compared to it. But like it doesn't mean that I dislike the game. So I've always tried to be honest with my feelings about, like, yes, I love these, but I have these faults, but overall I think it's great, you know. So like, hopefully that's how this came across. I don't know, without a script, it could just come off as me rambling and complaining about something that's not even out yet. Not my intent. Anyway, if you guys like this weird, whatever this was, let me know. Maybe I could do this for some other topics. If you have topics you want me to just unscriptedly rant about, let me know. Maybe I'll do it, because like I can actually get this out a lot faster than my scripted one. Not that I'm in any way going away from that. It's just the fact that like I want to get a video out, and I thought this would be the easiest way to do it, because it's just, you know, I can just set up the camera real quick and blah blah blah. But like, so this is in no way replacing my actual scripted videos. I want to make that very clear. In no way is it replacing any of them. But if you like this kind of content, I guess, let me know. I'd be happy to do it more. Like, I think it's fun. It's not like a live thing, but it's, you know, it's more me, right? It's more my personality can come out a little bit, I guess, in it. So not that I try to like hide my personality in the recorded videos, but again, you get what I mean. So yeah, if you like it, let me know. If you want, if there's certain topics you'd like me to like, either whether you want me to like hear like my just unscripted quick little thoughts like this, I don't imagine they'd ever be nearly as long as this is, or if you want it to be like a actual scripted out thing, let me know. I'm willing to talk about anything video game related. You guys know that. So yeah, that's all I got. It's midnight, so I'm gonna stop recording this now. Okay, well, thanks. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.